They told you love is everything. That if you give endlessly, forgive easily, stay vulnerable, the universe will keep you safe, shower you with respect, and return the favor in kind. But Niccolo Machiavelli, him the guy obsessed with power dynamics, saw it all differently. Love wasn't some noble gift. It was a gamble, a risk you strapped to your chest. For Machiavelli, believing that loyalty, good intentions, or love could protect you from betrayal. That's the most dangerous mistake of all. Let's get real. The people closest to you, your partner, your family, your best friend, are perfectly positioned to hurt you. They know the landscape of your heart, the soft spots you guard. And because they know you won't fight back, they feel safe stretching boundaries again and again. Think about it. Each time you forgive, you erase more than the mistake. You erase its consequences. You signal to them, go ahead, try again. You're safe. That's what I call the Machiavellian law of closeness. The deeper someone's in, the more they assume they deserve your time, energy, compassion without earning it. The result, they stop seeing you as a person. You're a utility, an ATM for emotions. You become the emotional janitor cleaning up their mess. And it happens slowly, casually, bit by bit. Have you ever noticed the more you give, the more they expect? The more patient you are, the more your peace gets disrespected. The more understanding you offer, the more blind they become to your pain. That's not coincidence. It's the direct consequence of unguarded emotional exposure. Machiavelli's point wasn't to stop loving. He was saying love needs limits. You need to guard it. Love, he believed, must be strategic. A carefully measured investment of energy, not some endless fountain that drowns you. Because once people realize your kindness will never stop, they stop worrying about stepping on you. They'll toy with your boundaries, push your buttons, and test how far they can go, because you never enforce any. We've been sold the narrative that softness is virtue, that sacrifice is noble, that relentless giving will eventually make people love you harder. Machiavelli laughed at that. He said people don't respect what's always there, they exploit it. So what's the alternative? It's not heartlessness, it's strategic coldness. Warmth, yes, but a wall backing it up. Generosity, absolutely, but only with people who meet your tests. Affection, yes, but cut off access at the first sign of hiding betrayal behind emotional noise. That's Machiavellian love. Conditional, disciplined, logical. While others bleed for anyone who shows a little affection, you should calculate as observe, protect. Yes, you become cold-blooded, but not cruel. You keep your humanity just with boundaries. Machiavelli didn't fear love. He feared what love turns into when it's unchecked. Let's break that down. You stay warm, sure, but you carry a fortress in your mind. You're generous, but only when they pass the vibe test. You speak gently, but you're ready to close the door quietly at the first betrayal. You hold space, but you're not theirs to occupy without earning it. That's not love without empathy. It's love with intellect. Imagine this: someone hurts you. In your old self, you'd react. You'd explain. You'd chase to fix it. You'd bleed to keep them close. In Machiavelli's world, you pause. You ask, is this love or manipulation layered over dependency? If it's the latter, don't plunge yourself into the battlefield of their emotional war. Instead, retreat, recalibrate, come back only when respect is present. This is part one of a deeper journey. In the next segment, we'll reveal the 7 emotional traps that people close to you wield, even subconsciously, to unravel your strength. Guilt, silence, loyalty, expectations. Entitlement, forgiveness, loops, emotional inconsistency, and the "you're too harsh" defense. These are the weapons that transform love into leverage. We'll show you how to spot them early and turn the power dynamic in your favor without losing your decency. Because here's the truth. Machiavelli drilled into most betrayals come from those who've mapped your soft spots, held your trust, learned your compassion, and studied exactly how to pull your strings. They didn't need cold steel, just emotional noise. And you gave it freely. But power, real power, is silent. It's in the calm before they speak. It's in the gap between feeling and reacting. It's in the space you hold without explanation. It's not hate. It isn't cruelty. It's control. It's protection. And it's self-respect. So pause, breathe. Let your silence do the talking. Let the world wonder what changed. But never explain your boundaries. Live them, and let your withdrawal, calm, polite, wordless, do all the teaching. Now let's get into the psychological traps, the emotional chess moves people play when they're close enough to access your inner world. And the truth is, most of them don't even know they're doing it. But that doesn't mean you can afford to ignore it. Trap 1, the entitlement shift. It always starts the same. You're generous. You offer your time, your support, your energy because you care. At first, they thank you, maybe even admire you. But slowly, what once felt like a favor becomes an expectation. You're always there. That's not generosity, that's now your role. You sacrifice your evening to talk them down from chaos. That's not noble, it's routine. You carry them emotionally. That's not patience anymore, that's your job. And when you finally say no, you're selfish. You've changed. You don't care like you used to. But the truth is brutal. They never loved the version of you with boundaries. They only loved the one who didn't have any. The one who let their chaos leak into your peace without consequences. Machiavelli would say, let them speak. That's not your guilt. It's them mourning the loss of their advantage. And your job isn't to argue. It's to hold the line. Trap 2, the guilt reflex. You finally protect your energy. You pull back. You say no. You set space. And what do? They don't meet you with understanding. They meet you with shame. After everything I've done for you, you're really doing this now. You're so cold. I don't even recognize you anymore. It's not a conversation. It's a tactic designed to make you second-guess your strength. Because if they can activate your guilt, they don't need to respect your boundary. They just need to press the right button. And Machiavelli, he'd remind you guilt is the weapon of the powerless, not because they're weak, but because they can't control you logically. So what do? You hold the line. You say less. You let the silence speak volumes. Because if someone has to use guilt to stay close, it was never about connection. It was always about control. Trap 3, the loyalty loop. You've been consistent. You've shown up. You've stood by them. But they've started fading. Stopped matching your energy. They disappear until it's convenient to reappear. And when you finally step back, they panic not out of heartbreak, but because they lost their emotional insurance policy. See if your loyalty is predictable, it's not appreciated, it's exploited. They didn't expect you to pull back. You've always been the one who stayed. And now that you're gone, they don't miss you. They miss the version of you who never left, no matter how one-sided it became. Machiavelli would say, if your goodness has no edge, it becomes invisible. So stop being shocked when people disrespect what you never protected. Let them earn your loyalty every single time, without assumption. Trap 4, just this once. This one's soft. It sounds small, but it's the most dangerous. Can you cover this for me just this once? Can you ignore what I said just this once? Can you let this slide just this once? And you say yes because it's small, because you love them, because you want peace. But what you're really doing is teaching them your bend point. They now know that if they cry the right way, or act sorry enough, or keep you emotionally foggy, you'll compromise. Not because it's right, but because you want connection more than clarity. And Machiavelli, he'd draw a hard line in the sand and whisper, what bends once can be broken later. Never confuse sentiment with stability. If someone gets used to watching you bend, they'll never think twice about applying pressure. Trap 5, the "you're too harsh" defense. This one flips your strength into a character flaw. You set a boundary. You're cruel. You create space. You've changed. You no longer explain your every decision. You've become distant. But they don't actually miss your warmth. They miss the version of you that bled for them on command. The version that tolerated discomfort so they could remain comfortable. They miss access, not love. Let them call you cold. Let them say you've changed. That's fine, because Machiavelli would smile and say good. They finally feel the difference. That means your evolution has begun. You're not the same person who allowed emotional chaos to rule your peace. And that's not a problem. That's progress, because being feared doesn't mean being hated. It means you're respected enough that people think twice before crossing you. It's not about walking into every room with cold armor. It's about carrying quiet strength, invisible lines and consequences that don't require explanation. Let's be clear, Machiavelli never hated love. He didn't fear emotion. He feared what happens when emotion runs wild without boundaries. So he didn't just suggest theories. He wrote rules, clear, blunt, and cold, like steel. Rule 1. You don't have to explain why you're gone. Just say, "I've recalibrated." That's it. No emotional breakdown. No 12-paragraph text. No apologies. Your silence becomes your fortress. You don't have to justify your distance. You just live it. Rule 2. You don't set conditions. You set consequences. Please don't speak to me like that is a request. But silence after being disrespected, that's a consequence. People don't change when you beg them to. They change when it costs them something. Rule 3. Never negotiate through emotion. If they know you panic when ignored, they'll go silent. If they know you cry when cornered, they'll guilt trip. If they know you chase when they pull back, they'll disappear anytime they want control. Machiavelli wouldn't let it happen, and neither should you. So let's go even deeper. People often ask, how do I build boundaries that actually last? Not the kind that crumble when someone cries or disappear when guilt shows up dressed as love. Real boundaries, unshakable ones. Ones that don't bend depending on who's asking how long you've known them or how lonely you are that night. Because here's the truth. If your boundaries shift depending on the person, they aren't boundaries. They're preferences. And preferences are soft. Machiavelli didn't live by preference. He lived by policy. For example, maybe you say, "I don't respond to yelling." That's the standard. So what happens when someone yells? You don't explain. You don't negotiate. You step back. Consistently. And not just once. Every time. Because if your boundary only applies when it's easy to follow, it's not a boundary, it's performance. This is how you stop living as a nice guy and start becoming a man of presence. You stop fearing the labels. You stop fearing the cold. Because the man who's terrified of being seen as too distant will always be manipulated by those who benefit from his availability. Machiavelli would stop you right there and say, let them call you what they want, because if your fear of being misunderstood outweighs your need to be respected, you will always be a servant in someone else's game, a player in someone else's script. Power begins when your boundaries are no longer negotiable. And that scares people, especially the ones who got used to using your kindness like a credit card. But again, that's not your concern. You're not here to repair their disappointment. You're here to enforce your standard. Quietly. You see, when most people begin to transform, they make a fatal error. They announce it. They declare it. They tell the world, I'm protecting my peace now. They post about it, text about it, write long explanations. And all that noise becomes a way of seeking permission for their own growth. Machiavelli didn't ask for permission. He moved in silence. He adjusted access without warning. He didn't need people to understand. He only needed them to feel the shift. And that's what you do now. When someone crosses a line, you don't create a spectacle. You just slow the conversation, delay the reply, reduce the energy, until they're left with the echo of your absence. Because real power is unannounced. It doesn't beg to be seen, it's felt. Now let's talk about emotional discipline. That's the battlefield most people lose on. Because it's one thing to know how to hold the line. It's another thing to know how to do it without collapsing under the weight of your own feelings. Here's how Machiavelli thought. When someone disrespected him, he didn't respond immediately. He didn't explode. He didn't go silent to be petty. He paused. And then he asked, what position do they want me in emotionally? If they wanted him angry, he stayed calm. If they wanted guilt, he stayed stoic. If they wanted attention, he gave them space. Because he knew something simple but devastatingly effective. The one who reacts emotionally first loses positioning second. And now that's you. You no longer react, you respond, you observe, you catalog, you calculate. You see, most people get caught in the cycle because they think emotional awareness means emotional exposure. But Machiavelli's mindset was the opposite. The more you feel, the more you must filter. You don't shut off your emotions. You just refuse to obey every single one. That's maturity. That's strength. That's your new armor. Now let's talk about reconciliation. Because not every relationship that fractures has to end. Some can rebuild. Some can return. But there must be proof. Not tears, not apologies. Proof. Changed behavior. New patterns. Respect that doesn't require reminders. Accountability that doesn't come with excuses. And if that's not there, you haven't lost anything. Because the man who has become cold-blooded in strategy never returns to old cycles without transformation. You don't go back because they miss you. You only go back if they've changed what made you leave. This is where many fail. They confuse emotional softness with spiritual growth. They think I can forgive, that means I should return. But Machiavelli didn't believe in emotional recycling. He believed in requalification. Just because someone's sorry doesn't mean they're worthy again. And here's the kicker. Softness isn't weakness, but softness without standards is suicide. So yes, you can love, but it's filtered now. Yes, you can forgive, but it doesn't mean you forget the lesson. Yes, you can help, but never at the cost of clarity. Not anymore. Because the quiet man who walks away once with dignity, with peace, cuts deeper than the one who screams and begs and breaks. The man who disappears without a war, but never returns without a reason, becomes unforgettable. Machiavelli didn't rely on noise. He relied on consequence. He didn't broadcast. He withdrew. And in that silence, people saw their reflection. That's the gift of boundaries. They show others who they really are without you saying a word. So when someone tells you you're acting brand new, you say nothing. You smile. You walk. You enforce. Because you're not here to be familiar. You're here to be felt. You are not ice. You are not stone. You are the filter now. You reflect what's given. You return warmth when it's earned. You withdraw when it's crossed. And you remain immovable when tested. That's Machiavellian empathy. Strategic, unapologetic, human but not foolish. So how do you live this way? Not just during moments of betrayal. Not just when your back's against the wall. But every day with consistency, with power, without needing to prove anything to anyone. This is the final stage. It's no longer about revenge or emotional self-defense or pulling back when someone crosses the line. This is about becoming unshakable, quietly, permanently. Habit 1. Move without emotional announcement. You don't tell people I'm focusing on myself now. You don't declare I've changed and I'm protecting my peace. You don't explain why you're pulling back. You just do it. Because people who truly shifted don't narrate the shift. They live it. You don't re-engage with chaos. You don't revisit old patterns. And when people notice you're gone, you don't explain. You don't leave a caption. You don't chase closure. Power doesn't need permission. And peace isn't a performance. It's a personal strategy. one that requires no spotlight. Habit 2. Stay polite, never over-familiar. This isn't about becoming rude or emotionally frigid. It's about precision. You can be kind, you can be calm, but you are no longer available on demand. Warmth now is something you offer when it aligns with your standards, not when someone expects it by default. You greet gently but not eagerly. You leave conversations while still respected, not when you're drained. You compliment rarely and only when it's earned, because overfamiliarity is how most people lose power. They mistake access for intimacy, and you no longer let anyone confuse the two. Habit 3. Pause between the feeling and the response. You'll still feel everything: the sting of disrespect, the confusion of betrayal, the grief of distance. But you don't act on it, not right away. You don't panic, you don't lash out, you don't beg for clarity or force understanding. Instead, you ask yourself one powerful question: what emotional position are they trying to place me in? And once you identify it, guilt, anger, fear, you step out of it. You choose stillness over reaction, distance over noise. You adjust access, not your standards. That's what Machiavelli mastered, not suppressing emotions, but governing them like territory. And that's what you master now. Habit 4. Return only when requalified. Yes, forgiveness exists. Yes, grace exists. But you're not returning to old dynamics just because someone's crying. You're not giving access back because they suddenly remember your worth. You want proof, changed behavior, respect shown without pressure, accountability initiated without prompting. Because if someone really values you, they'll fix what cost them your presence. And if they don't, you haven't lost anything. You've confirmed everything. That's not bitterness, that's boundaries. And you're no longer interested in emotional recycling. Habit 5. Treat your emotional peace as a private strategy. This is the final layer, the quietest, the strongest. Your growth is not something you advertise. You don't build your transformation so people applaud you. You build it so people respect what they can no longer reach. Let them wonder where you went. Let them miss the version of you that gave too much too easily. Let them call you cold, distant, different. But let no one ever again access your soul without requalification. Because cold-blooded doesn't mean numb. It doesn't mean loveless. It means you feel deeply, but you choose who's worth feeling for. It means you're not heartless. You just have standards now.